students, and welcome to another episode of Stay at Home Blues and Oranges, brought to you by After School All Stars Hawaii. I'm Miss Burns, and today you and me are going to paint a grand old oak tree. Let's start with our supplies. We're going to need paint. So I have black, brown, green, yellow, and white. I have a cup of water to thin our paint as well as wash out our brushes. Some napkins to wipe the excess paint or water off our brushes. I have a paper plate that I use as a palette for my paints. I have 3 brushes. I have one large flat brush, a small flat brush, and then just a crummy old throwaway brush. And then I have a canvas. Oh, I also have a pencil because I want to sketch out really quickly, and I've actually done it for you to see. Sketch out just a brief little tree, and then we're going to paint over it. Don't worry, it'll be fine. So first thing we're going to do is get a little bit of that white paint, and we're going to just go right over the bottom of our tree. Then we'll take some of that yellow and go above it and blend it out. Oh, that's bright. So let's rewind a little bit. I want to talk about this tree. So this is an oak tree, and so it's not like a pine tree that's, you know, straight up and down and there's branches going out straight out. This one is more curly and kind of takes on a life of its own in the branches. So you don't need to try and mimic mine exactly, and it's okay because no 2 trees are alike. So yeah, just kind of rough sketch it. If it doesn't look right, we'll cover it with some leaves or make it change the bark. So let's move on. Now let's work on the bark. So we're gonna get some of this brown. Let's see how it goes. And we're just kind of patting it down. I think I like a little bit of black in there. I want it to be a little bit darker. And just pat it down. Ooh. So the paint is a little bit wet down here, so we'll just move up, we'll work up here. And we're gonna go over all of our branches. I just like to kind of shake the brush a little, so it doesn't give like that smooth line. 'Cause trees, now that we got the bark down, let's move on to the leaves. So this is where our junky brush comes in. And I always say, don't throw away your old brushes because they come in handy for things like this. So just tap it in there, take the extra off. Ooh, that's a lot. And then we're just gonna put it in places. Just tap it in. Just kind of turn it around. I'm gonna make sure I put some here just because I don't want my pencil marks to show. I got some pencil marks here too. Those aren't pencil marks, that's leaves. Make sure we get the edges of your canvas just so that if you want to hang it up, it looks nice and not left with little white edges. Okay, so I think we're done. Just kidding, we're not done. Now we're gonna add darker leaves. It just gives it more dimension. So we're gonna add some black to that green. And then kind of pat that in there as well. So if there's an area, there's an area that you don't like that looks a little not so nice, this is where we put our bunch of leaves. So there should be some different variations in the color, and that's what you want because that's, you know, everything in nature is not perfect. There's different variations in the colors, and we can see the sunlight passing through the leaves in some of these areas. And just keep going. So if you are unhappy with the way it's turning out, or we're losing some branches, we can go ahead and add that in a little later. So just kind of get a nice, maybe for some of you, like for myself, I think that the yellow is a little bit too yellow. So I'm just kind of going over all of, not to cover it completely, but just to kind of mute it a little bit. And I will go in and add brown, go over some of the branches. Some of them we want to keep covered. Yeah, because we don't want to expose all of it. So if you're happy with the yellow shining through that much, that's totally fine. For myself, I think it's a little much. So I'm going to go ahead and cover most of it. Let some of it peep through, but then we're going to go over and go over some of the branches later. Now that we have our tree, our leaves in, let's move on to the mountains. So we're just taking our flat brush and kind of just running over that. Doesn't have to be perfect, just good enough. So now we're gonna move on to the grass right under the mountains. We kind of want to mix the green and yellow. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just getting some color in there. Ooh. We can cover these roots. That's fine. We got that first layer of green, greenish yellow, and then we're gonna go back in over that with some darker green. I think it's a little bit too wet here, but we'll just make it work. So guys, I decided to kind of pat some of that paint off with the napkin. It's a little bit wet, a little too wet for me. And I'm just gonna go over it again with a drier brush. Oh, that's better. Now we're gonna take our scruffy little brush, just pat it in the green, and we're gonna go up. This is our grass. Okay, we got our first, well, I don't know what layer that is, of grass. Then we're gonna go in and darken that grass. So each layer you know, we're getting darker and darker, and that gives it more dimension. So I'm gonna have to play around with this to get the right. Going back in, adding more grass. And, ooh, I think going upwards works best. Now I'm just, the grass closest to us, I'm just doing it in black. Ooh. And don't just do it all in one direction, kind of move in different directions. While this grass is drying, because it starts to get a little muddy if it's still wet and we add more paint, I'm gonna just add a little bit of color variation to the leaves. And that's just in some areas. I need my yellow. So we're gonna move on to the bark, and we already have a brown or dark brown in there. So I'm just gonna mix some of the brown and a little bit of white and just make short little strokes like that. Don't worry, we didn't ruin our painting. And I want it so that the light is coming from this side. So we're highlighting only this side of the bark. So, and this is where we can put in more tree limbs or whatever that we may have covered up. And then I'm just gonna go in and do that too. And we don't want it on the whole entire piece, just here and there. Now that we've had that highlight, we're gonna add a little bit more white to it. Just tap and then add that to that part that we already highlighted. Tapping it in as well. Each step builds upon the last. So when it's done, it should look more realistic. And remember, any area that we don't like or doesn't look quite right, we're just adding leaves to it. So we're going to continue highlighting this because, as I said, we're building and building on the last layer. So we're going to take in a darker brown again, and that's just mixing the brown and some of the black and tapping it in certain areas. Now that we've highlighted the side that the sunlight is hitting, we're gonna create a little bit of a shadow on the opposite side of the tree bark. And we're just doing that with some really dark brownish black. So the tree I'm pretty happy with. So now I'm going to go back into the grass and add in some lighter shades of the grass. But I don't want all of the, okay, there. Thinking, I wonder if I should just leave this. All right, I like how it's the lighter grass closest to me. I feel like I want to add a little bit darker because I feel like that's a little bit too much. So I'm gonna just add some of that black, green and black back in there. Just in some areas. All right, I think maybe I'm gonna add a little bit of white in the clouds. So yeah, let me do that. I'm gonna clean off my brush first. So here I go. Cross your fingers I don't ruin this. But I'm just adding a little bit of white in here. All right, I think I'm gonna end it there before I end up ruining it. So this is our grand old oak tree. What do you think? So here's our grand old oak tree. I had a lot of fun painting it. I hope that you did as well. I can't wait to see your piece. Take a picture of it, put it in the comments below, and have a great day.